What is up, you guys? Welcome to another incredible episode of the Explain It podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Stephen Hunt.
And I'm Ingrid Hernandez.
And boy, do we have a great guest for you today. This is somebody that we've been wanting to get on the show for quite some time. He's actually my business partner in property management. We have none other than the Drew Brantley.
Drew Y. Brantley.
Drew Y. Brantley. Welcome, Drew. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's give the audience just a little bit of background. Who is Drew Brantley? What do you do? How long have you been doing it? Give us just a little bit of a summary there.
Of course. My name is Drew Brantley. I am the co-owner and operator of Habu Property Management. I'm with Visions Companies Realty. I've been a property manager for about 7 years now. Stephen had reached out now about 2.5 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
2.5 years ago, saying, hey, you're starting a property management company. I need a property manager. Let's see what we can do to kind of melt the two together. And here we are.
Yeah. Well, let's back it up even further than that. So Drew got into real estate and he started working for another property manager and he ended up basically running the entire show over there. And so as I was on my entrepreneurial journey, Drew and I were best friends. We've known each other for over a decade now. And we were talking every single day. I was like, one day you're going to manage my properties. It's going to be so cool, yada, yada. And then as I was going through this entrepreneurial journey, I was like, one day we got to start a property management business, or one day you need to go off on your own and start your own property management business. And then one day, it was like a December or a January, you called me at random and you were like, I did it. I quit. I'm starting my own property management business. And I was like, what? It was like so out of left field. Didn't see it coming. And I was like, wait. I was like, can you come over? I was like, can we talk about this? Can we do this together? I got to make a PowerPoint for this. You know what I mean?
PowerPoint.
Oh my God. The guy with the PowerPoint over there for sure.
So we started that about 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
We went from, I guess when we started, it was like 10 properties and, now, up to 150. So crazy 2.5 years for sure.
It's been moving fast. And what's funny about that 152 is that we actually had to stop all of our onboarding because we had so many properties coming through. And that's when we learned how to be real business owners and real operators of a business because the fulfillment wasn't catching up with the amount of demand that we were getting. So we said, hey, let's pause this for a minute. Let's really figure out all of our back end. And that's where I feel like the last 6 months have really been for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just working on systems and processes and, kind of fine tuning everything.
Yeah.
And if you guys are out there on Instagram, I see you all out there. Yasid, Benny, Daniel, Marlon, come over to YouTube where you're going to have a much better experience, either my channel or Steven's channel, and ask all those pesky questions about running on operating short-term rentals. And that's going to be we're going to have Drew back because first of all, we love him. I mean, look at how cute he is. But secondly, because the really amazing thing about Habu, which stands for highest and best use, is that they do short-term, long-term, mid-term, co-living.
Yeah.
But we want to kind of make sure we tailored this one specifically to short-term and also what it's been like starting a business. Everybody has kind of like their own preconceived notions of what that looks like. And it's like, oh, super easy. No, thank you. No, it's not. No, it's not easy.
Yeah. And don't filter yourself when you're talking about starting a business.
Yeah,
absolutely don't.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
It's our damn show. We say what we want on here.
For sure. So yeah, you started this business. So tell us, like,
what did you expect?
Yeah.
And then what was the reality?
Yeah.
When it came to starting a business?
So I definitely expected it to be different. I thought that I was going to leave my old job and it was going to be exactly the same. And I was just going to pick up and then everything was just going to be under my name moving forward. That couldn't have been more wrong. I had to find out that, wait, I'm not just a property manager now. I'm an accountant. I am a runner. I am a maintenance coordinator. I'm kind of all of these different hats all at one time that I don't think I did too much preparation for beforehand.
Actually, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because you may have never taken the leap if you understood all of these roles that you were now going to have to take.
100%.
And so there's a book called Burn the Boats. And it feels like that's literally what you ended up doing unintentionally.
Oh, for sure.
Going head on.
For sure. We jumped and then we figured it out after that.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
We figured out a lot of things.
And there's a quote that says, jump and the net will appear.
Yes.
Yeah. So very cool. Okay, so you didn't realize you're gonna have to play all these roles, which actually, guys, that's super, super common. If you read the book, The E-Myth, you'll realize that too. Like there's a story about a lady who's a baker and she's like the best cookie maker ever. And she's like, I'm gonna go make a business and make cookies. And then not realize that, like, okay, now she's in order. Somebody who has to order the product. She's got to manage the lease that she has. She's got to manage employees. So she's no longer just this cookie maker. She's now this whole business operator. And part of that is understanding, like, what do you want out of life? Get some clarity and then go after it. Exactly. So yeah. It's a great book. Highly recommend it. But I love that you guys are focusing on systems and SOPs. I want you guys to know that all my short-term rentals are actually ran by Habu. And so I highly recommend them for sure. And the better you get your business running, like the better it is for us as customers. So, as far as your SOPs, like what's some of the focuses that you have like within that realm?
So right now, one main focus is accounting. I unfortunately do not have an accounting background. So we're kind of coming up ways for us to be able to kind of get to the point to where it's working each month. And then obviously hire someone who is more fit for that role.
Yeah.
That's kind of been a huge focus of ours. And then onboarding too. We want to make sure beforehand, when Steven would make a post and then 20 people would reach out and say, I have a house. Yeah. We didn't really have the time to really sit and figure out exactly how that process worked. We just signed everybody on all at once.
Yeah.
So now we're really taking our time to make sure, hey, do we have all the information we need right at the beginning to be able to run this property exactly the way we need to?
And you want to have a good fit, right? Like, one of the things I really appreciate about Habu is the service you get. And I'm just going to be honest with all of you. Not all of you deserve that service. The cheapos, the slumlords, the pains in the asses, you're out there. I have heard you on the phone. And so I would say it has to be a good fit because technically you're getting into, a quote unquote partnership with these landlords. So
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think that was the main difference too from starting, 2.5 years ago to now, is that now we have, it's like our buy box. It's, it's like,
your client box.
We know exactly what we need to take on in order to succeed.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of time for trial and error.
Yeah. And then you've enjoyed sort of this hospitality side of things, right? I remember before I knew you and I was totally intimidated to like get to know Drew at the time. Steven would talk really highly of you. And he's like, oh my God, he's great. He'll put these baskets together and make like the client experience so beautiful. Like when you're going through the short-term thing. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I don't do that. Yeah.
It's just that level of, I've always had kind of a host mentality.
Yes.
And it's just kind of making people feel special. With short-term renting, people are here for just a small, short while. So it's very important that we make it the best time we can as possible for them.
Yeah. And by the way, because I got to know Drew, he actually helped me with my daughter's 15th birthday.
You
and
should see
it was
the birthday
so
parties.
Freaking amazing. He has such a talent for being such a great hostess host. Sorry.
I'll take it.
I was the hostess. He was the host. And host with the most for sure.
Yeah.
And I love that level of detail and that level of experience you end up giving people. I know, right? Like most recently, have you guys rolled out like the Habu stuff that'll be on the TVs?
Not yet. But yeah, that's kind of our goal right now. We're trying to kind of put some marketing into our homes.
Talk about that experience. Like that is very unique. I love that.
Yeah. We're just wanting to kind of make sure that, we're loud. And each guest who stays in our homes, that we're making it an enjoyable experience that they can come back to though too. So we're trying right now to kind of have sort of a slideshow on each TV with all of our information, different discount codes to, either restaurants or things that you might need on your trip, good affiliate programs
Yep.
that
Yes.
we could be a part of.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, just that extra step
Mhm.
for guests to make
Mhm.
them feel special.
Yeah, and then that's really how you localize your experiences and build community. Even though you're
100%.
short-term rentals sometimes get a really bad rap. When you do things like this, now you become a commerce creator.
Correct.
And so
Mhm.
restaurants, event spaces, things like that are going to want you to have your short-term rental running because you're bringing them business.
Right.
So, yeah.
And think about how easy of a marketing tactic that is too, to work with these restaurants. Hey, would you give 20% off to, to our entire company, anybody that stays at our houses? We have 150 properties. We did 10,804 stays last year.
Wow.
10,804 stays. So we have 10,000, let's call it 10,000 people that basically came through these houses, 10,000 plus people, because it's not just one person that's staying at the houses. It's typically more than one. Would you like us to send that volume over to your restaurant? Would you be willing to give us a 20% discount,
Yeah.
on that? And then it makes a better guest experience as well, and shows that we're going the extra mile because they're getting something with us that they would never get with another Airbnb host.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so fantastic. So a huge gem and nugget for you out there. If you're running short-term rentals, how can you leverage marketing for yourself when you have a property? And a shout out to Chris Geddes, who we love. We love him.
Oh,
He's so great. He's like
one of the best landlords.
First of all, yeah. They're like, oh,
Awesome.
he's the best
Yeah.
landlord. I'm like,
He's
wait a second.
legitimately
I'm a
one of the best
landlord
human beings
too.
I've ever met.
Truly.
Great.
And super strong. I mean, watch out.
Literally.
So, thanks, Chris. You're awesome. So that's really cool. And that kind of like allows you guys to kind of think more creatively about how you can maximize some of the verticals that you're included in
Totally.
your STR.
100%.
Yeah.
Something that I'm curious to know about too, and have everybody understand. So you came from a background where you were primarily, just like most property management businesses, primarily only focused on long-term rentals. And you did something that was called vacation rentals, but we call them midterm in the investor world, right?
Mhm.
And it was just something that was just vacation rentals, which still had a lease, and then you had your long-term rentals. What was the shift and the transition like for you going into the short-term rental world then? Because it's a pretty stark difference from our experience.
100%. I guess the biggest difference was that we weren't ever review based. Obviously, we always try to offer that high level of service. Even in my old job, because there's still Google reviews or, things that can
Yeah.
kind of come in through there.
Better Business Bureau.
Exactly. One thing is that we have to be on the entire time. There's not one time that we can drop our service to any guest. And that's even, all throughout the night. There's times where emergencies and issues come up, when no one's, online right now.
Mhm.
So it's just that I think that was probably the hardest adjustment. And then the second hardest would be actually to try to keep them happy constantly. We as property managers, we fall into this hard balance of keeping a guest happy and then working on behalf of our landlords.
Mhm.
So we have to find that middle ground to where, hey, this guest is trying to take advantage of us right now. They're trying to receive their money back.
Mhm.
But I can't just say, yes, you can go ahead and grab your money back. This is okay. I'm working on trying to produce this for our landlord, produce money for our landlords.
Yeah.
So I think that was a pretty different shift, in the long-term renting world. The money's going to hit on the first of the month, each month, but it's a constant struggle of making sure that, hey, we have to make sure this stay goes well so that we can get the most amount of money to our landlords at the end of that month.
Yeah. That makes a lot
Absolutely.
of sense.
Yeah. And I know one of the measures, so we just recently started implementing this too, because if you guys are on TikTok or Instagram, there's this trend going around of basically how to get your money back from Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
How do I go into an Airbnb? How do I stay there for free and get all my money back?
Mhm.
So it's this trend. And I mean, you're dealing with it.
Yes. Document.
You should tell the story of what just happened this past week. And we were actually doing a team outing when this situation came up, but you should totally talk about that.
Oh yeah, we like I said, we were out doing a team outing, all together, a little bowling, and we got this call, around 8 o'clock at night. That the guest said, hey, we got into the property, the carpets haven't been cleaned, the back door will not lock, the TV remote is not working. Little things like that, where like, oh, we're so sorry for that, that you ran into these issues. I'm going to check with the team right now. We have, proof, so we're going to go and review that as well. I'll get right back with you. They had already called Airbnb at that point. They called Airbnb and said, hey, we're not staying here. We're going to get all of our money back. And then they left the property. So then now our fight is with Airbnb. So now we have to sit on the phone and say, hey, here's the property before the guests moved in. And then here's the property now that we're viewing the property after the guest has already checked out. And there is no difference to that. One thing that we implemented was, shout out to Lavelle, who had such an amazing idea for body cam footage. So now our inspectors, each time they're going through the property, they're wearing a body cam and they're able to record every square inch of the house. But that even goes as far as testing everything in the house that we have on video proof. So we were actually able to pull that video, address every issue that the tenant had claimed that there was something wrong. We went ahead and we provided that to Airbnb. It was probably a 2-hour conversation that we were on the phone with. Airbnb says, hey, but this property was supposed to be ready. And we're like, hey, here's the proof that it is ready. And here's the policy. The guests also didn't ask us to correct any of these issues for them. And in the Airbnb policy on the host end, the guest has to give us the opportunity to right the wrong. But on the guest side of things, it says you just have to let the host know that there's an issue wrong and then call Airbnb right after that. So we're also dealing with contradicting
policies.
Exactly. So we had Airbnb go and review both policies, and they did agree that there's no way that they can come up with a decision based on this information. And because of the proof that we were able to provide to them, we actually got all of our money back, and they got the stay canceled, and we have already rented out to a new person.
Yeah.
So the landlord did make
that's double income. We call that double income. 2 for 1.
Exactly. So like it's the most important thing is to just make sure you have your documentation before any move in. Like Stephen was saying earlier about the scams going around, they're everywhere. People just know that you can call Airbnb, make a little fuss, and then get all of your money back immediately.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I wonder if you should have a lawyer review the fact that they have contradicting policies, because it favors. Now, mind you, I do believe it's important to protect the consumer, right? Because there are some people who we had a terrible experience
and we got trashed.
And we totally got trashed.
He made up so much stuff about us. We were
tons.
so nice.
We were extremely nice. First of all, he's like, and I left them all this wine for them. I'm like, I don't drink. So it was interesting.
They let mice in the house.
They had mice in the house. They said that, oh, we let the mice in. I'm like, why would I want to let a mouse in? Like, it was ridiculous. It was a disgusting house. It really was. I still want to buy it. Because I feel like I could run it better and make it much better experience for people who even their basement was off limits because it was so gross. Like they had some sort of flooding or something where nastiness came through their bathtub. Yeah, it was terrible. I have video. I even sent Airbnb video of like us trying to catch this mouse. Like it was so terrible. I couldn't even sleep because I was like, this mouse is going to come eat my ear or something. So, but anyways, I mean, we were in a space in an area where like bear, deer, mice was going to be a common thing, but there was clearly a lot of evidence that mice were typical in that house. But so you also have to know, like, so this guy made assumptions. So that's something I was just going to bring up. He made assumptions that like alcohol was something that we revered, which was not at all. So do you do anything? What are some of the things you do before somebody comes to a short-term rental? So like you can make sure, first of all, this guest is a good fit for this house. Mm-hmm. And if maybe there's anything extra you could do. If the guy had even asked me, I would have been like, we don't drink. I mean, if you want to leave us, some steaks, because I'm a huge carnivore, but like, yeah.
So one main thing that we want to make sure that we do is, make sure that the communication starts well before their stay starts.
Yeah.
So we're, the moment that someone books one of our properties, we immediately reach out to them within first 3 seconds. So they already have a message. Hey, we're so excited you booked our home. Please let us know if there's anything that you need as you prepare for your trip. And then that's when, once that booking starts, it's in our calendar system, then our runner is able to go to the property, obviously make sure it's all ready for them. But then to add those special touches, like we provide water, make sure that they have their K-cups, little things like that to where they can just walk into the home and then start living immediately.
Yeah. So that they don't have needs.
Exactly. And then open that door, because also, we don't want to, it's again, that line between making a guest happy, but then also working for the landlords. Our goal is to also keep costs down, at that same time.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
We just make sure that everything that we can provide is already provided to them. And then there might be some special cases where people ask, hey, can we set up balloons? I remember a while ago, there was someone who asked if they, hey, can you, is there any way we can send you, $100 to go and decorate? We want, this place to be special for, whoever it was. I think it was a birthday, for when they arrive. And, that's surely what we did. We went in there, we blew up balloons. I host parties sometimes, so I have a balloon pump. And
it was impressive.
Yeah, we put up banners. It was fun.
Yeah.
I wanted to stay and party.
Yeah, that's super cool. And those are the types of things that, as you're considering your short-term renter manager, that you want to be in alignment with that, right? Like one of the things that we talked about was like, am I going to have to provide more shampoo and conditioner going forward? And then Drew was like, you don't want to do that per se, because somebody can come back and sue you if that shampoo and conditioner does anything to their scalp or skin, if they have a breakout or allergy. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So, as a property manager, we have to really look at worst case scenarios. Because we're on a daily basis, we deal with all different types of personality types.
Yeah.
So we try very hard to just make it uniform across the board for everyone. So when we start adding, alcohol or soaps, or even, laundry detergent with special, fragrance, things like that. We already know someone's going to complain about it. So we just make sure to eliminate that altogether.
Yeah, that makes sense. Somebody on Instagram says 3% interest. I'm curious, like, if you have a 3% interest deal, holler at me, DM me, slide in there. So yeah, for sure. So I don't understand what your question might be, but that's interesting. And so being that you're in Arizona, like the mecca of, one of the meccas, right? Like you got New York, California, despite all the shit that gets talked about in New York, there's California. There's still a lot of investors there. But Arizona really is a big hub here. Do you see that a lot of short-term rental holders have more than one property with you? I know I do.
Oh, yeah. Especially with us being in the investor space, constantly a lot of landlords who are constantly picking up more properties, seeing that our model is working, and then wanting to maybe get another property to throw it into the mix. So crazy enough, I think we have about five or six landlords where it's, hey, I'm not an investor. I just want to rent my home out, and then that's it.
So they're actually in smaller numbers versus that investor that has like repeat.
Yeah, correct. Okay. And that's mainly because we're in the furnished rental space. A lot of people who have, single family homes that they own just that one property. It's long-term unfurnished, and then, rented, and then not have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, and a lot of those people are just looking for the cheapest price they can get, which obviously comes with a little bit less quality. And the really unique thing with us is that we have that opportunity to pivot in so many different ways. I'll give you an example of this. We had a landlord that brought over a property to us that they wanted to do co-living with. We said, hey, we ran the numbers on this as a long-term, a mid-term, a short-term, and a co-living. We don't think that co-living is going to make you the most amount of money on this property. We think that you should be doing a short-term, mid-term hybrid model here. But we think if you're looking for consistency, what's your goal here? Their goal was consistency. If you're looking for consistency, I think your number one route here is going to be Section 8. So they had a whole different plan in mind of what they thought they were going to do versus what we saw as being the best solution truly for them. And that's why I love the approach that we get to take here, is because it's all solution-based. It's all based off of what that landlord's trying to accomplish. And they might have an idea because they heard some buzzwords somewhere of what they want to accomplish. But at the end of the day, we can actually run the numbers and tell them this is the right direction for you, you know?
I love it. So what I hear you say when you say that is you're not just order takers, you're actually a consultant. Like they want you to win, because the more you win as an investor or holder of rentals, the more business it'll bring you.
Correct.
Yeah. I wish more property managers had that attitude.
And most property managers don't do it this way either. It's just, we found a way that we were able to run all of these different types of management all together and have it flow all in through the same systems. A lot of property managers will say, well, I'm only working on STR, or I'm only working on long-term unfurnished rentals. So when you're able to find that balance to be able to kind of say, hey, just bring us your asset, and then we'll go through and figure out which ways will make the most sense for your property based on, you know, what Steven said, your goals.
Right. We got Andrew Ariaga in the house.
Mr.
What's
Sub
up?
2, Drew.
Andrew.
Yeah.
The other Drew.
Yeah. Sub 2 Drew.
The
Habu
and
Drew.
Drew. This
Yeah.
is just
I'm
Drew.
Habu Drew, and
Yeah.
then Sub 2 Drew.
Oh, look at that. You did it. I didn't do it.
Uh-huh.
He told me, don't call me Habu Drew. And now here he's calling himself Habu Drew. So I love it. Awesome. Actually, you know, I have to give you some kudos. And Drew jumping on here actually kind of made me think about it. So we went to a short-term rental conference last year, ran by somebody very prominent. And I was like, woo, we are going to see some heavy hitters here. And again, I'm tooting their horn. They may not be tooting their horn. We get there and we're like, let's find other people who have this high unit count that they're running, right? Mind you, their portfolio that they help manage is a mix, right? Long-term, mid-term, co-living, and short-term. But the short-term, mid-term size is like 75, 85, right? Some number around there.
Around there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the number, right? And we get there, and the biggest portfolio somebody's running, I still remember, is 49. And I was like, oh shit.
And that was arbitrage.
And that was arbitrage.
Yeah, that was arbitrage.
Yeah. So I was like, this is so incredible. You just found out you're actually the heavy hitters.
That was an adjustment.
That was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we went to this conference and we're like, okay, like we've been shooting in the dark a little bit. Like Drew obviously has a background of property management, but we're like, okay, going into the short-term space, how can we make everything run efficiently and automate and all these different things with all the different forms of management that we have? And the hardest one by a long shot, we'd both agree, and most laborious one is going to be the short-term rentals.
You
So
say laborious, I say laborious.
I was going to say
Just kidding.
laborious, but I
I'm
was
sure.
like, oh, I don't know. Does that sound right? But so we're like, we're going to go here and learn all these tips and tricks from all these different people because it's a conference only solely dedicated to this one thing. You know what I mean? That we could definitely use some answers to create some more efficiencies within the business. But yeah, that was like the wake up call there where we were like, well, hold on. And people that were at some of the higher numbers, and when I say the higher numbers, the 20, 30 under management, things like that, that was like year 5 and 6 for them going into it. Whereas we were a year and a half into the business and had bumped up all this volume right away. So I was like, well, shoot. I was like, this is great. We have something here. I'm like, but we ain't getting none of these answers.
Yeah.
We ain't getting nothing.
Yeah.
We went
In fact,
into-
the person that had the conference going on was like, hey, could my team actually meet with you guys? I'm really curious how you got this many under management and you know what your processes look like. And I'm like, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted. That's why we flew out here.
Yeah. Wait, this is a short-term rental conference. You're supposed to have the answers. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it shifted our mindset. You know, we went from us being like, hey, we're going to get all this information. We're going to talk to all these people to being like, oh, wait, we're going to provide all of this information. We're going to talk.
Yeah,
to all these
exactly.
people.
It turned into a completely different conversation.
Which was fun. You
Which
know,
I
enjoyed
love
doing it.
because, again, you guys have had your heads down, focused on property management, focused on running the business. And that's supposed to be a fruit of your labor. Like, hey, you deserve that accolade that you are the heavy hitters here. And by the way, they're only focused in the state of Arizona right now. And so I think that reinforces something that we actually covered not too long ago. We had Marlon on the podcast, and we talked about narrowing your focus to expand your reach. And this is an example of that, where focus on this one business in this one location in this one market and really put your head down and see what you can do. And you guys literally accomplished that. Now, because you guys are ambitious, right? You're like, wait, this isn't enough. I need more. And that's great. That's actually super great, right? Because every business needs to think about, what does the longevity of this look like? What does an exit look like? You always start with the end in mind. And so what's that big goal for you, you big ambitious boys? Like what is it? What does that look like for you on this property management side?
So ideally, if this was like the earliest we would sell, is we want to be at 500 units under management, and that would be bringing in roughly $3 million of revenue. Okay, if I use the revenue in the terms of the profit that we take essentially from our management fees and any ancillary fees that come along with it.
As in,
not the rent, not just the rents collected.
Correct.
Gross profit. Correct. Before expenses, employees, all that kind of stuff. So when we're at that mark, that would be about $3 million. And once you pass the $2 million mark, essentially, when it comes to property management, the way that private equity looks at it is that you're usually getting between a 7 to 10x multiple at that point, because this is a monthly reoccurring revenue business model, right? You have a bunch of people that have contracts, 2-year agreements, so they can expect, they understand what it's going to look like.
Right.
So that would be, I think, the earliest we'd want to sell out at.
Yeah. I love it. So the guys, they have a plan. They know what to focus on. And so as you start out this 2025, what's your short end goal of this year then? So you're at 150. Your mix is about 50% STR, 50% everything else, which I presume is mostly long-term rental. Have you found, like, is that a good ratio for you, and that's the way you want to climb? So you want to be mindful of how many STRs versus everything else you get? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So right now, one thing about short-term renting, especially here in Arizona, is that we are hit with the grueling summers that kind of bring down our season here. Again, we as a property management company try very hard to maintain occupancy throughout the entire year. But with short-term rentals, it could be a little bit difficult because we don't get that influx of travelers coming in. So we are trying to really rev up our long-term rentals so that they're able to kind of sustain the business as well, because we know we're going to get that rent in each month. And then we don't have to worry about peak and low seasons.
Got it. So it's more of a mix of what supports the business versus necessarily what the portfolio revenue looks like. Okay. So right now it's really, I will call it more of a stabilization goal, because you're right. Like, guys, I have 10 properties. 3 or 4 of them are short-term rentals. What is it? Sedona, 2 in Surprise, and then Palmeritas.
Palmeritas.
Yeah. So I have 4 short-term. I don't remember, because he's running them all, so I don't remember any of them. And yeah, the summer sucks. So these babies are like performing really well right now. And as a landlord, I just don't take from them. I'm like, I got to get through the summer.
Just in case. Yeah.
So would one opportunity be to mix in a bit more of those folks who do midterms and do more of the insurance claims, like, hey, needed those stays and whatnot? So
yeah, that's our plan of action. You know, anytime a property comes on, we rent it out as a short-term rental. But while we're renting it out as a short-term rental, we're also having it listed on MLS, Zillow. Because we hold an Arizona real estate license, we're able to kind of list it as a realtor. So we're able to look for other agents who, hey, I have a client who will be here for 5 months out of the summer. They need a place to stay. As you said, insurance companies, relocated, relocation experts, people who, hey, my house just burnt down. I need somewhere to go for a while. Probably not the summertime. That's probably a year or 2.
Or, hey, I just bought a house, because buy season really does come April, May. I just sent you one today, right? Like, hey, we just bought a house. We need a place to stay for a month while we transition into the new house.
Exactly. So, a lot of people don't know that there's endless amount of ways to kind of get midterm leases in. And it's even as simple as, hey, calling businesses and saying, hey, do you send people here to Arizona?
Corporate rentals.
Exactly.
Or yes, corporate job rentals. I know this was really beautiful. The property in Shaw Butte that we got up. How fast did we freaking did? Okay, so I bought this property creatively. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll do Section 8. It was a low entry, great interest rate. I felt like I could cash flow. Even if it broke even, I was going to be happy. And Drew was like, hey, I have another landlord who's going to go self-manage, and he's basically booting like their clients from the property. And I was like, oh no. And he's like, is there any way that we can convert your new property into a property they can stay? It's only like 2 miles away from where the other one was. And I was like, only if you help me, because I can't do this on my own. He's like, okay, bet. So literally, what was that? Like Monday or Tuesday, you told me that we had that freaking property ready by Thursday.
Well, it would, I came to you and I said, how soon can you have the property ready?
Yeah.
And it was, I think, I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was.
We had to build a wall.
Oh, it was
by
everything.
the way. We had to build a wall to convert this 4th den into an actual bedroom. And then we're like, forget it. We're not painting, because he didn't really like the yellow paint. And I bought this beautiful, beautiful couch. I'm like, really? Like, I really wish I really wish that couch was in my house.
Couch was great.
For $700, I think. Like, a lot of things kind of came together once our minds were set. Like, this is what we're gonna do.
And we were able to like leverage other landlords who were selling their properties or getting rid of their furniture, and then place those items in there. I mean. I think we had about 36 hours and we turned it around. We got it.
Craziness.
We got it made.
I was blown away by that.
Guests moved in.
I remember when that happened.
Yeah.
I had like my cheeks were red. I was working so hard. I accidentally fasted for a couple of days because there was just no time to even eat.
Yeah.
We had to build furniture. We had to clean. We had to fold stuff. Like, it was wild. And what came of it is like the neighbor across the street was a pool man. So he was able to fix the pool, and now he's our pool guy for my properties in Surprise. A lot of great things came from it. We found our junk hauler guy was able to do a lot more than just junk haul. He like, I'll move your furniture, and for him it was a huge blessing for his family. So it was like, cool. So you got to see all these things in motion that like actually bring a lot more prosperity to other people.
Of course.
And I was like, that's so cool.
Well, and the tenant, I mean, the guest itself stayed for 3 months. He moved out for I think about 3 weeks, and then is back in for 8 months. So
shut up.
I
didn't know this.
Oh, sorry. Back to what we were talking about originally. This was a corporate, I'll call it a corporate job lease, where they're going to be here working long term on construction, and they just want a nice, solid place to stay. And that's how much they liked it, because Habu was
fantastic.
Was able to help us get that to that level.
Yeah, it was a perfect scenario.
Yeah,
I mean, everything kind of worked out good.
If you guys watch those videos, I was sweating. I worked hard that week.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, a lot of adrenaline. Yeah. Hey, Elizabeth, welcome to the show. Coming in from Gilbert, really appreciate that.
Good old Gilbert, Arizona. STRs in Gilbert, they tend to do well, or I guess we get more midterm stays probably in those.
A lot of midterm stays. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the market. So here in Arizona, obviously, again, guys, they narrowed their focus. They're only focused on Arizona. And I'm going to tell you this because I'm kind of like a middle person sometimes. Like, people come to me and they're like, oh, no, you want to talk to Drew and Steven. And everybody wants their service in like Colorado and Texas and Florida. And it's like, no, guys, they're focused only right now in Arizona. So in the Arizona market, if you could claim it, because we have people watching on YouTube, people watching on Instagram, if you could talk to them and say, what areas do you think are lucrative for short-term rental, and what clients you'd like because of that? Like what? Or
and property type as well, like size, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, size matters.
For sure. So obviously the more bedrooms you have in a home, the more money you're going to make from it. But also, it's accommodating for families. It's accommodating for larger families. So I would say if you're looking for a home, kind of being in that 4 to 5 bedroom is where the moment we list them, they go away completely. Well, they don't go away; they get rented, and we don't have to worry about them.
We burn them down.
Yeah,
you can collect that insurance money real fast.
So yes, so we ended up getting those rented right away, right as soon as we put them in the market. And then the areas that are kind of doing well, Gilbert and Chandler, on the east side, we've kind of figured out that midterm is kind of where things kind of more lead to. And the west side is where we're getting just so much short-term renting. So that's your Peoria, your Glendale, your even your West Phoenix properties, your Surprise, Goodyear, places like that. I mean, endless amount of inquiries from.
That's so cool. Why do you think that is?
I believe it's a different demographic. Of course, what I believe is that you have a lot more people on the east side who are kind of more hotel driven, or, hey, I want to not really go into the space that has short-term renting. That's kind of what we found on our end. But I don't know.
I would say price points too is a factor of that. Like people on the east side, like when we have a 4-bedroom house in Gilbert, are fine with paying $7,000 a month for 6 months for that house in Gilbert. They know it's going to be newer, it's going to be nicer, it's in a great area. They know all those things. And then it's just a little bit more cost effective to be on the west side. So if I know, hey, I'm at a conference here in Phoenix for work, or I'm on vacation, or whatever the case is, right? I could stay in Scottsdale, I could stay in Arcadia, or I could just be 20, 30 minutes out. And, it's not that far. Like, think about this, guys. In any other state other than Arizona, 20 to 30 minutes away, no big deal. Now in Arizona, we like to bitch about it, but in anywhere else, it's like, guys, in LA to drive like a mile and a half takes like an hour and 20 minutes.
I was just going to say, so Caleb Miles, he just posted he has an MTR in Houston. I actually just sold my MTR STR in Houston over to Christopher Klein. Shout out to Christopher Klein. And it takes an hour to get to Houston.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, from Houston to Houston takes an hour. And I'm like, that's so wild. Here, my expectations is 1 mile a minute or less. So if you're 15 miles away, I literally can get to you in about 15, 20 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, so I'd say that's a big factor. Now, here's an inquiry that we get all the time. And people think that they are like, that this is like the best place to own a short-term rental. And that's Scottsdale. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, I got this lead in Scottsdale. What do you think? Like $10,000 a month. What do you think this can do? It's a 3-bed, 2-bath house on an HOA, and it has, an old pool. It was built in 1959. What's been your experience with that?
So you can throw a stone from that house and then hit 20 others exactly like it. Scottsdale is just overly saturated. The properties that do
You
well,
said
do.
trying to go back from that. The properties that do well are your luxury properties, obviously. You have, a specific group of people who are only looking for that.
Like the bachelorette style houses that have all those little amenities
Right.
that make that experience.
But your standard 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and our experience with complexes, or your 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom complexes there's just so many in a 5-mile radius. Not even, smaller than that. There's so many in the 3-mile radius that it's just overly saturated. There's so much inventory out there. So yes, you're going to get booked, but it's pulling teeth to get those bookings to just stream in. When you have a short-term rental, you really want to make sure that it's a little bit of legwork, but it's also running itself, that you're able to put that property on the market, and then just an endless supply of bookings coming in right away.
So what are those levers that we pull then, right? If it's a short-term rental, if it's not getting booked out, then we have to factor in, okay, is it the price point, right? Are we charging too much on a nightly rate? So then we have to bring the price point down and see if that lever helps out. But then in the same breath too, the cost of getting into a home in Scottsdale, a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot home, it's cost you $850,000. Like your PITI on that is going to be nuts. And you would get the same nightly rate, most likely, as you would over in Goodyear and some of those other areas, because there's less competition. It's still an affordable price point. It's just, your PITI is going to be significantly lower because you can buy a house over there for $350,000, $400,000.
And that's usually what happens. We'll get landlords with Scottsdale properties, and they'll bring them to us, and they say, hey, this 3-bedroom, 2-bath, we'll need to make $5,000 a month on it, and that's our bottom line. And we're like, oh, okay, well, we'll try. We'll do that. But there has to be a level of you being realistic about what, goals we can set. And with Scottsdale, what we've dealt with is the payments have just been a little bit too high for us to kind of make that difference for you.
Yeah. And I love it. And that's why, that's a true consultant in my brain, where you don't want to go to an operator that's just going to be a yes man. Like we've experienced and seeing people making these like large investments, and that's ultimately what happens. It's like, no, man, if your PITI is almost $4,000 or $4,000, like, you can't have that expectation that that thing's going to get covered every single month.
Right.
Exactly.
Not in a saturated market.
Mhm.
So now we've made some calculated investments. Like we have a property all together in Palmeritas, you know, out in
We got 2.
85051. He's got 2. We've got what did
Yeah,
you
we've got 2.
Oh, we own 2.
We own 2 together, all 3 of us.
But we have 1 short-term rental out in 85051. If you guys have 85051 properties, definitely send it our way. But and by the way, we speak in zip code. That's just the way it goes.
Speaking
that
code.
is a really great zip code for short-term rentals because it's a lot of that blue collar stays.
Yep.
They just need something affordable. Staying 1, 2, 3 months. And this really is an MTR strategy, but having a furnished rental in that area is really lucrative.
100%.
And we bought this property creatively, knowing that it was going to be underwater around $30,000. And we were okay with that. We did it eyes wide open because the PITI was still manageable enough that even if, let's say we lost 300 or so on that property, like on a summer month, like we were going to be able to be okay. And that depreciation of that property is actually going to give us more than doing anything else with it.
For sure. We actually just got it. Got an amazing stay come in for that property. It's a 2-bedroom house. And
It's such a cute house.
we're getting $5,500 for the month for the month of February. So
That's so fantastic.
Hey,
We got to let Angel
and that's
know.
a short month. She's going to be very pumped to hear this.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the other cool part about that too is working with your property manager. Here's what's different about us too. Because we do long-term, mid-term, short-term co-living, all that kind of stuff, Drew has to be a licensed agent in order to manage those, to put things on the MLS. So it gives us not only more avenues of where we can go with that, but like I have a property in 85051 that performed great for 2 years. And then we started to get a little bit of a slowdown. I was having a little bit more repairs come up on the property, and I had to make an educated decision and go, you know what, I need to sell this house. I'm probably just going to need to sell this house and reallocate these funds somewhere else. So we had Drew listed on the market, and within a week, we had an offer on it, full price, full ask. They want the furniture to go along with it because they also want to run it as a short-term rental. We actually get to keep it under management.
You're going to client it. I love it.
I had the call with her yesterday. Yeah. Which is great. And then now I can reallocate those funds into something else where I can get a higher return too. So having somebody you can work with that also, it's not just different rental strategies. It's like, hey, this isn't performing well in Scottsdale. You have $200,000 worth of equity. We can almost go buy a house free and clear in 85051 and net $5,000 a month. Why don't we go do that instead?
Yeah. Yes. Actually, it's one thing that I think you guys could really dominate in Arizona because you have a licensed property management company. And I'm going to say this for all of you to hear. A lot of these property management companies are doing it illegally in the way that the rules of the state of Arizona have, like what they have in place. And yes, I'm talking to your short-term operators / arbitragers, not arbitragers per se, because they actually that's the workaround. Actually, those are the people who actually have an equity stake because they're a clouded title, if you will, or they have rights because even as a corporate leaseholder, you have rights then to do what it is you've gotten permission to do based on the landlord. But everybody else who's like, oh yeah, I'll run it for you. I'll operate it for you. If they don't have an Arizona license to do that and they don't own that property or are arbitraging it, they're actually illegally doing it.
Which there's some, there's a workaround for everything.
Yeah.
But it's more so, when we get into the regulations and being, regulated by the Arizona Department of Real Estate, there's a lot of trust accounting that we have to do. So then when we're dealing with trust, I mean, we're looked at every single day. So I think a few of those workarounds are, I've seen people they don't do that money collection, and once you collect that money, it's implied property management after that point.
There's your kicker. So if the person who is trying to manage your properties in the state of Arizona, every state has their own conditions, because I think Texas probably has the looser side of those rules, right? Like you don't have to
be licensed when you're in Texas.
Yeah.
Which is why we also like the idea of going to Texas first for our first market.
Yeah. But in Arizona, you do, or you should, if they're collecting that money on your behalf.
That's correct.
Yeah. Right on. Cool. I love that. And that's why coming over to Habu is really for me, it was such a game changer and like I would be stupid to say, no, I'm going to self-manage or do something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do offer that, hands off approach too, to where, you're able to.
We heard it.
Jobs.
Yeah.
I want one of those.
Do hand jobs.
Do
What?
hand jobs.
Just kidding. Sorry, guys. There might be kids in the audience.
Right. Yeah. So we offer that hands-off approach.
Thank you.
To where someone like Ingrid and Steven, we manage your properties as well. Where you guys are so focused on the investing and finding your next deal and your real estate side of things, that we're able to kind of take what you guys bring from those and just make them perform. And all you do as a landlord is just collect your money once a month.
Right. Absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah. In terms of growth too, because I know we were talking about that a little bit earlier. One of the things is you're right. We did get to this point of like, cool. It's like we're stabilized now. Like the team knows what they're doing. Everybody knows their role. Everybody knows what goes where and when. Not saying it's perfect 100% of the time, right? It's like any other business. You're building a business, right? So now it comes to this point where we're like, cool, we still have people that we're onboarding. We still want to keep that going. We actually want to ramp that up a little bit more now that the team is more up to speed on everything. But it's also looking for other areas of revenue that we can generate. So me selling this one property in 85051 was actually a little bit of that test too, in order to be like, okay, what if I go to sell this property and I go reallocate these funds somewhere else? Awesome. So let's start offering this more to landlords now, especially our landlords that are underperforming, perhaps, where they might have decent equity spreads, and say, hey, why don't we find you a property that's going to get you a little bit more bang for your buck, so it's less stressful for you. And that way you have actual cash flow that's coming through on a monthly basis. I know you love this house, but let us be the experts and let us help guide you in the right direction. So that way we can get you as much money as possible on a monthly basis, still get your appreciation, still get all the other good stuff. So it's for us trying to figure out, okay, how can we branch out within our existing business right now and the people that we're currently working with to generate more revenue for the business, but also providing more value to the people we're working with too.
Did you 1031 that property?
That one I personally did not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're just gonna take the hit.
It's a long, yeah.
It's okay.
I have enough write-offs for that. It's the next two I'm probably gonna 1031 that I end up selling off. But yeah, because I'm consolidating certain aspects of the portfolio.
By the way, if you guys have small multifamily, Mr. Steven Hunt would love it if he could 1031 those into a multifamily. Yes. What, 5-10 unit?
3 to 4.
3 to 4.
Yeah, 3 to 4. Even a duplex. I'll take a duplex.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the right price.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Fantastic. Look, hey,
give me
why have a show if you're not going to tell the people what you want?
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. Cool. That's so great.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, I'm waiting for questions. I'm trying to think of all the craziness that, what is just the wildest story that you can share with us in your short-term rental experience? The reason I ask him that, because I swear every time I come into this office, because we all share an office, it's always something. There is always something, guys.
Yeah.
There's always something.
Let's talk about past problems, not the current ones. And by the way,
past.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's so many. Each day is a new day. Every time we walk in here,
units filled with mold. We've had that. We've had neighbors. So we had somebody that stayed at one of my properties actually, who started pointing guns at the neighbors.
Oh yes.
And so we had the neighbors calling Drew saying, "You need to do something about this guy. He's waving guns at us. He's pointing the guns at us in the middle of the night. He's getting drunk and he's being crazy."
And, the tenant to tenant disputes are fun to deal with when it's just mainly they hate each other. And I'm sure a lot of those situations are taken kind of the wrong way as well. It's not exactly what happened. What is it? You get three sides of the story.
You have the actual truth and then each person's perspective.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, we get stuff like that happen all the time. We need to make sure that we're present and we're, around to be able to handle situations like that. But as far as like crazy and weird, I mean, there was one time where that guest who I think it was checking in Lawrence, and they booked on booking.com.
Oh gosh.
And actually after this, we stopped using booking.com completely.
And VRBO.
Because we found out that, people can book properties, but then it's set up almost hotel-esque and they're, hey, you can swipe your card when you arrive to the property. This is short-term renting. And we don't have that. So we actually canceled their stay. And they ended up showing up to the property anyway. And, we were looking at the cameras. They were walking around the perimeter, checking doors, trying to get in. They called me 100 times. And I, finally told them, I said, hey, I'm going to call the police and you guys need to leave. I'm not giving you guys access to this house. I'm so sorry. We won't be able to accommodate you at this time. And they thought it was funny, and it was pretty harmless, so I thought it was funny too. They took my phone number and they created a Craigslist ad, and a Craigslist ad of people, someone who is selling chickens and a chicken coop
For free.
for free.
They had a bunch
And
of chickens and
they
chicken
knew
coops.
what they were doing by adding for free in there, because everyone, for the past 24 hours, my phone never stopped blowing up. Hey, Drew, I'm interested in this coop. I don't want the chickens though. I just want the coop. Hey, what year was the coop made? Like, it was all of these different
Do you
questions.
have a photo of the coop?
Yeah, and it never stopped. So I mean, that's what kind of, one crazy thing that's happened. I wouldn't even call that crazy.
That
but
is crazy.
It's funny. It's funny. It was
Well,
harmless.
I'm sure you were mad then. You had to.
No, I was laughing because I
Oh.
had no idea. It took me about 20 minutes to figure out, where's my number posted? Why are all these people reaching out about this coops? And I didn't know there was a huge market in chickens and coops here.
We maybe need to look into that.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
know a lot of people want them.
Yeah, I actually, with eggs and the bird flu thing going on,
Oh.
me and my husband and our friends, the Contreras, we have this big old thread. I'm like, dude, we need to get some chickens.
I'm
I
I'm
want
thinking about getting some chickens
so
up this new
bad.
house.
Oh, you're
yeah.
Please.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
We should, but who's
yeah.
going to take care of them? That's the problem. You know what I
No,
mean?
that
It
is
ain't
the
going to be my
problem.
daughter.
A
My
farm
wife ain't
hand.
going in there. A farmhand?
Yeah, neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah. A neighbor.
Anyone. What's Joe? What's that guy's name? Joe?
Jim.
Jim.
Mm.
Jim's got horses. He don't need no chickens.
I love me some
Yeah.
fresh chicken eggs.
So crazy things happen all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, dealing with neighbors. I mean, I think we had another property where a neighbor waved a gun at the tenant.
Well, guys, it's Arizona.
Oh,
You know, we gun
we
happy.
had
We
one-
gun
Guns are
happy.
waving.
I've gone through way too many of these, by the way, too. And Drew's always handled all of them. We had one where it was a duplex that I own, and one of the neighbors was on drugs or something and was pounding on the windows of the other person saying, "You slept with my man," and blah, blah, blah. And Drew's like, "I don't need none of this. I don't need none of this." And then directed her children, her like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old children, to go and vandalize her car, to do all these things. We had it all on camera. I mean, like,
Oh, my
straight up,
gosh.
like, I forgot all about that.
Oh my gosh.
Halo was her name.
Halo and Cheryl.
I did forget to ask a question. So in the state of Arizona, we've become a little bit more regulated, right? So when somebody wants to get a property on the west side or otherwise, do they have to go through the licensing process, or is that just certain cities?
So as far as permitting, short-term renting
for,
permitting,
for short-term renting, yeah.
so it's short-term renting permitting is required everywhere now.
Everywhere.
There are cities and some jurisdictions that don't heavily look into if you have one or not. But the safe bet is if you open it in Arizona, go ahead and open that license.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool.
So if you sign on with us, we actually take care of those things for you. So we're able to kind of make sure that you have your, TPT all squared away, your short-term renting
Well, we
permitting.
don't have TPT no more.
So
Mhm.
TPT is actually still being used for short-term renting.
Oh, I didn't know that. Tell the people what TPT is.
TPT
It's
is
not
your
an STD, guys, although it sounds like it.
it's not. It's your transactional privilege tax here in the state of Arizona. I
Mhm.
think we're one of 6 states that that used to charge rental tax statewide. And it's the state saying, "Hey, I need a piece of that." Anything
Fine.
that you're
Yeah,
making.
give me some of that money.
Exactly.
Guys, they've run 3 of my short-term rentals. One of them we all own together, or 4. And I had no idea because they've taken care of it for me. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you want the stress or do you not want the stress? So, yeah.
We just want to make sure that, all those issues are handled.
Mhm.
Obviously, if they're not, you're going to get a letter or we're going to get a letter,
On
and
my
that just
behalf.
creates more work for everyone. So
Mhm.
those are things that we really try very hard to kind of make sure that we have in place.
Have there been
initially.
any rejections to these short-term rental requests to get licensed? Have you seen any trouble in that?
No. They're pretty touchy on information that's being inputted. So if there's anything that has questions or anything, they'll kind of shoot back, and say,
Mhm.
"Hey, make these corrections." But there's never a reason why you should be denied for it.
Really?
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't know if there was sort of like a
No.
lottery or like, hey, we're capped. We got to 10,000 or something.
Not yet. I'm sure that's coming.
It has to be
I'm
coming,
sure it's coming.
especially in Scottsdale.
And of course, the city ordinances, specific to that city,
Mhm.
so there's Scottsdale, as far as, say co-living, and for
Mhm.
example, we have co-living that we put onto Airbnb as well to try to get, rooms booked out.
Mhm.
Things like that is a no-no.
Yeah.
Based on their original ordinances, you're not allowed to rent out even your guest house in the backyard. So as long as we stay up to date with all of these laws and changes,
Mhm.
then we'll ensure that our landlords are also.
It's 80% of the work in property management is staying
Staying
Correct.
on top of all the laws.
Yeah.
And every law for property management is the afterthought of whatever law they made for realtors.
Yes.
So it's always like, so what does that mean for us? They're like, oh shit, we didn't think about that.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you. Yeah. We're like,
Yeah.
this doesn't make sense for property management.
Yeah.
They're like, oh.
It is different.
Like
Yeah.
like the NAR settlement that we went through.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
That makes sense. Well, Drew, it has been a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. Where can people find you, Drew?
You can find me on Instagram. Drew Y Brantley is my handle name. I'm trying to rev up my my social game this year, so you'll be seeing a lot more from me, and I'm going to work really hard to try to get some more content out there for you guys that you guys can learn from. And then, of course, we're here at Habu, Drew at habumgmt.com. If you guys have any property management questions or would like to inquire about our services.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome sauce. Well, Stephen, how often do we have these podcasts?
We do these podcasts every week on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Arizona time, and we bring on specialized guests so that they can explain it to you guys, the viewers. So please come and join us every single Wednesday. Bring your questions so we can get answers for you and it can be explained.
Absolutely. And if you guys have any ideas about new podcasts that we can do, we have some really great ones coming up around subtooing your own car, and I can't wait to talk to all of you about this terrible experience we've had with an RV subtoo that's gone wild. And we're going to have other people in different expertise, like how to help small towns to get revitalized, all kinds of things, RV parks. So we're really excited about what's coming down the pike with all of these guests. But of course, we're going to have Drew back because we only covered short-term rentals, and we can't wait to learn more from all your expertise. So thanks for being here.
Thank
all right,
you.
guys, we will catch you next Wednesday, just like Steven said, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Arizona time. So see you next week.
Is that off?